It's tournament season at First, and the next big one at Santa Anita, Gulfstream and Express Bet is the Ultimate Betting Challenge this Saturday, March the 2nd. The Ultimate Betting Challenge features every race at Gulfstream Park on Fountain of Youth Day and Santa Anita Park on Big Cap Day, making it a coast-to-coast betting extravaganza. Buy in for $6,000, $5,000 live bankroll, and compete against players from around the country for massive cash prizes and NHC seats. First, we'll seed 4 NHC seats to the prize pool, and all cash entry fees will be distributed back as prizes. At 150 players, that's $150,000 in cash prizes, plus those 4 NHC seats. Play in the UBC on site at Gulfstream or Santa Anita, or jump in online with ExpressBet. Head over to expressbet.com/tournaments for more information and to register to play. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, moving right along on Fountain of Youth Saturday at Gulfstream to race number 12, the Grade 3 Canadian Turf Stakes. We're going to take a look at this field going 1 1/16 on the grass. 10 horses in here, Mike. Curious to see what we get from the 3. Emmanuel, we were a fan of this horse last year, and sometimes he showed up with a good race, and sometimes he showed up with a little bit of a clunker, and we'll see what we get off the layoff for Pletcher and Irad.
There are a couple of pretty astounding performances on his card where it just feels like for one reason or another he didn't show up. But overall, this horse has been rock solid since he switched over to the grass.
He won this race last year, but he did have the benefit of a prep at Tampa Bay. Now he's going to come into this race straight off of a layoff. We'll throw up the Timeform US pace projector. Saratoga Flash is fast, and Saratoga Flash is getting back arguably to his preferred surface. He's going to show speed, so will Giant Game, so will Smoke and Tea. This pace will be honest.
Yeah, I think the pace will be honest. I don't know that it has to be blazing, but I don't think it's going to compromise the closers.
Saratoga Flash, the one, has raced on synthetic surfaces in his last 2 starts. You go back to Turf 3-back. Hey, the purses at Kentucky Downs, how can you argue? And Saratoga Flash won a $500,000 handicap going a mile. He did so on the lead. He's likely to get the lead once again. Now we'll find out how good he really is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it bothers me that the one turf race on his card that makes him competitive in here came on a loose lead at Kentucky Downs, because his other races on the grass are fine, but I wouldn't be betting him off of any of those.
Smoke and Tea is very underrated for Shug McGahee, and doesn't he sort of fit the profile of a Shug horse? A horse that got good towards the end of his 4-year-old campaign. Shug just seems to have them improve with maturity, sometimes with distance. And this horse won a graded stakes race in his final start of 2023. Now, I thought he got the right setup in that River City from off the pace, but he might get an honest pace to attack again.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he could get another really good trip. And the good thing about him too, Dan, is if the pace is fast, he's fine with that. He'll sit and run. But if it's not fast, they'll just move him right up close, and he'll get a good trip that way too. I mean, I found this horse to be impossible to knock in here. It's a very short layoff. I mean, maybe he'll need a race or two to get going again, but this horse is super dangerous in here.
He's run well fresh in the past. And again, one of the horses that was an also-ran from the last race came back to earn a 99 buyer when placing in a synthetic stakes race at Turfway. So he fits from a class standpoint. You mentioned he's adaptable to pace, and he might actually be somewhat of an interesting price. Emmanuel figures to take money. He won this race last year. Now he's got to do it off a layoff. Last time out in the 4-star Davy was in against Casa Creed, who's one of the better turf horses in the entire country. I expected a little bit more for him, but maybe that's one of the reasons why he went to the layoff. Maybe just he wasn't performing up to expectations for Todd.
Yeah, I mean, he was bad in that most recent start, and he got a layoff right after it. It was also less than firm turf, so that could have something to do with it. But again, he'll throw in a clunker or two, Dan, but for the most part, this horse shows up. He's another horse who can get really good trips in his races. Of course, he won this race last year as the favorite. I think this is a tougher field this year.
From Pletcher to Brown, here's the 4, Turf King, another horse coming off of a summer layoff. We haven't seen him since he took the Grade 3 Marine at Woodbine, of all places. This was on a synthetic surface where he's 2 for 2 in his career, and I think it's safe to say this trip worked out down inside.
It did. I'll appreciate that he gets the job done here, though, Dan, because when you watch the head on, you'll see that horse to his outside. He puts him in really tight. He bumps him a couple of times, but Turf King just runs right through it and out finishes that horse. So I just liked that performance from him. I realized that 2 of his 3 wins are on the synthetic surface, but that first turf start at Keeneland last year is one that will get you interested in this horse on the grass. He ran super that day and outfinished a really good horse at the end of that race.
He figures to be a fair price in this race for a trainer that can certainly win off long layoffs. Siege of Boston's a one-run closer. He's pace dependent, he's trip dependent, he's honest enough. He's hit the board in 12 of 14, including the graded Tampa Bay Stakes last time out. It was his first start off a little bit of a layoff. You see him going to gradually make his way through to finish third, Mike. And this is Siege of Boston. He's going to run on late. And if you give him pace, he can make a threatening presence at a price.
Exactly. He runs well in here. He can't quite get up. It's a good field that he's facing, though. It's another good performance for him off a little layoff. He ran really well 2 starts back, I thought, when Smoke and T beat him. He put in another really nice late run that day. It's all about trip for this horse, Dan. He's got to get himself into range when this field enters the stretch.
Atone, the number 6, won the Pegasus World Cup Turf in 2023, found a much tougher group of horses this year. For a horse that had no chance turning for home, I mean, last on the rail and behind everybody, this jock just worked out a perfect situation, saving ground, ending up behind Warm Heart, and Atone at least ran on a little bit at the end. I like him cutting back a little bit for this start.
I don't mind him cutting back for this either. He's a horse that you have to try to get a good price on once again here, though, Dan, because he's not that reliable. He's capable of running a really big race, but then he'll have some performances where he just doesn't show up at all. And so you can't take short prices on him, but his good race makes him really tough in here.
Another horse stepping up is the 7. That's Elden Prince, coming off a win in a high-level allowance last time out. Keep an eye on the gray horse in here, Elden Prince, on New Year's Day. 3 wide and in between, turning into the stretch. He's going to gut it out, Mike. He worked hard. He deserves an opportunity against tougher horses, but this is a pretty big, steep jump up in class.
It is. He's pretty game to get the job done here. I like this performance. I thought he ran pretty well 2 starts back at Tampa, too, where he just came too late in there and ran out of time at the end. I like the way that he's trending. He was a stakes winner early on, Dan, before he missed a ton of time. So maybe he's just sort of getting himself back into shape now.
New Connections might have found a bargain with the 8 Napoleonic War, a horse that was graded stakes place for Chad Brown in 2022. He sold for $75,000 at Keeneland November. First start for these Connections came at Tampa Bay Downs in late January, and he gets it done in a second-level allowance race over a horse that would come back to win with an 89 at that level.
Yeah, he runs okay in here. It's close to the best race that he was capable of for Chad Brown. So it's certainly a good starting off point. As a 5-year-old, I wasn't a huge fan when Chad had him. I thought he was maybe a little bit better than he looked on paper, but Chad obviously had way better horses than this one.
From a class standpoint, the number 9 Giant Game fits right in with these horses. It's all about whether he can step on the turf. He's by a strong turf stallion in Giant's Causeway. He's a half-brother to Isotherm, who could do it on either surface. Giant Game, though, is a horse that to me just kind of underperformed at times, Mike. And even when he got his big wins in races like the Cornhusker, he kind of was handed the lead. So he's got to prove it to me on turf.
Yeah, me too. I mean, on the face of it, he's got turf pedigree, so maybe he'll handle the surface switch, but it doesn't feel like they're switching him to grass because they think he's a turf horse. It feels like they're switching him to grass because they've gone as far as they can with him in the big dirt races. He's really not going to win any of those.
Ice Chocolatte's an honest horse for trainer Mark Casse. Distance might be a little bit of a question. They've been running him sprints. They've been running him a mile. A mile was no problem in this race at Gulfstream on Pegasus Day, January the 27th. Rice Chocolat rallied from off the pace to score a high-level allowance. So he's coming into this race in good form. He's going to have to overcome a tough post position, but on his best day, he can run with these kind of horses.
Yeah, he can. This horse he's pretty dangerous here. I like this as a starting off point for 2024. Dan, they just rated him on the outside, let him run through the stretch, and he was better than those horses. He ran really well. He didn't win any of those stage races last year. He ran really well in all of them over a bunch of different distances.
Let's take a look at our top picks for the Grade 3 Canadian Turf. You're going with Turf King. Again, go back and watch that Turf debut in Formulator at Keeneland. Very, very impressive. I like that they're putting him in this spot despite the layoff. And he's lightly raced, Mike. We probably haven't seen his best.
No, he's going to have to take a step forward to beat this field. We'll see if he can do it, and he's going to have to do it off the layoff too, which I guess, is another concern. I just felt like he would be a fair price in this race, Dan. I don't think there were any killers in this field, and I think this horse has a chance to be good.
I think the 2 Smoking Tea is going to run an honest race in here and needs to be considered, as Mike mentioned, demand price on Atone because he's not the most consistent horse in the world. I want him to get better early position in this race. 4-2-3-6 for Mike, 6-2-5-10 for me. It's a good edition of the Canadian Turf at Gulfstream on Saturday. Good luck.